Dear whoever is reading this, my name is Cosllie, and today I'd like to present to you a poem. A poem told to me by my friend long, long ago. A poem I hope to leave behind in this world, along with all of my failures. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor would well those passions read which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, king of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away." Comfort in a Portal, Act 1, Hindsight. The portal sat parallel to the hill in the distance. It shined in the glaring sun. And then, suddenly, out stepped a figure, skin a coalescence of ebony and red, eyes a crisp white. It was tytoo, Ryan. He had come from a world not too different from this one, albeit it seemed his friends had not joined him. His head turned to the portal, awaiting someone. 1 minute, 5 minutes, an hour. He ceased counting and turned his head once again. There was a dog, not unlike the one he had witnessed die the day before. He, of course, had not wanted it to die, but as the world was ending, it was the only play if he did not want it to die a painful death. Ryan reminisced about the times he had with his friend, Cosllie, who had just been told was going through the same portal he was. That would be engulfing the plains soon, and with that came the undead. It might be a good idea to try and make a structure, but at least he still had his sword. His sword. At that moment, Ryan thought back to their last words to each other, their last interaction. "My sword," he said. "I gave it to Cosmic." Although protected by the anti-knockback netherite armor, it would be hard to kill zombies with just his bare fists. It may be time to make a shelter. An arrow flew past his head. He had been thinking too long. The sky had turned to pitch black in his lack of attention. The portal illuminated the ground around him, but not enough to see the skeleton who had just endeavored to kill him. Ryan's head jolted to the closest patch of trees. Somewhere in there was something dangerous. Too dark to see, the silhouette of the armor-clad warrior began to run in the opposite direction, away from the trees, away from the portal. But he could always come back. Right now, his one objective was to get somewhere safe, maybe find some iron or something useful. All his truly useful things had been thrown out right outside the other side of the portal, and his inventory was now filled with mob heads and sentimental trinkets. Things he was glad he had in this new world, but not things that could kill what was hunting him. There, up ahead, Ryan made out a small cave entrance, similar to the one he had found himself in when waking up in the first world. The opening was small, but big enough that someone his size could squeeze through. Some spare blackstone was used to close it off, sealing himself away from anything with a larger bloodlust than him. If Ash went through the portal before me, shouldn't she be here right now? He asked himself. Or what about Cosmic? Where are they? He began pacing up and down the small area left open for him, torch in hand. Maybe Finn found a way to come back and keep Cosmic there. The torch went out, and the cave became covered in darkness for a split second before it was replaced with another. That would explain why they aren't here, but that would also mean I'm stuck with no way to get back to them. The cave was cold. It reminded him of both underground bases the pair had, although at least those were lit with lanterns and jack-o'-lanterns. In trying to solve the issue of temperature, multiple wool blocks were placed in an attempt to form some sort of insulation. What to do? He placed the mob heads gathered from his ender chest along the walls. If anything, they had made the cave feel more homely than the large open cave in his previous home. He also examined his shulker box. Everything still seemed to be there. Although the trio was in such a rush to leave, there wasn't much time to go over the items he was taking. The majority of Ryan's belongings before the discovery of the portal were potions, extra armor sets, or other things only ever valued in the context of fights between players, but now his inventory was full of useless decorations. His torch went out again. What the hell? A new torch was pulled from his inventory, and yet again went out. It seemed, maybe in this world, Torches did go out. He stopped pacing, and a water droplet hit his head. Could there be water trapped inside these blocks? Or maybe there happened to be a pool of old cave water above him. With minimal building materials left, there was only one option to stop the water from disturbing the piece any longer. Pickaxe in hand, Ryan swung twice before the piece of stone above him became air and was added to his inventory. Water began to flow down, and he swam up the mini waterfall that had now been created. What he found was a completely closed-off cave, of course, with a large amount of the open space being filled with water. With his remaining blocks, Ryan filled the area and fell back into his new home. One question found itself more important than the rest. Is there a god in this new world? Long ago, in his homeland, Ryan had sworn his loyalty to the Disciples of Godkin, a society hell-bent on exterminating any god or point of worship, as they believe no person should be seen above the rest. His main goal in the last world was to kill any god he found. He knew of two. One was already dead when he got there, and the other had been killed before entering the portal, Finn Osalaris, a malevolent god known by Cosllie before Ryan arrived to be a trickster, a liar, and someone who sought chaos. However, although only having entered this realm not long ago, there seemed to not be any sign of a god. There seemed to not be any sign of anyone. Except monsters, of course. If there were a god, they had not shown themselves. Must be a weak one then. I thought better. He chuckled. Not many could fight him and live to tell the tale. But then again, he didn't know why. Besides his morals and the knowledge of Godkin, barely any memories before entering the First World came to him. It seemed as if the group had just been placed there by a higher power. Although it wasn't B, as they were dead. It was also not Finn, as even though they were a god, they were first a player, just like them. And even if Finn did bring them there, who brought Finn and their group to the structure-filled world? He sat down, tired from the day's events. Too many thoughts flooded his brain. He needed to reset. He needed to sleep. Comfort in a portal. Act 2. Terror. Ryan opened his eyes, staring at the cave ceiling. He was used to waking up in this kind of dark. It was rare for him to sleep anywhere but underground. He looked around. Wall, mob heads, a single torch. So it wasn't a dream. He rolled off his makeshift carpet bed and let out a long, throaty, tension-draining groan. He took a deep breath and stood up. "All right," he said as he stretched and equipped the netherite armor laying on the block beside him. "Time to get some work done. If I'm going to be here for a while, I might as well do something productive." He knew starting work was always the hard part, but once started, everything would start to become easier. The grind was something he knew well and embraced. He pulled out the trusty pick used the night before and tore away the black stone bricks blocking out the cave entrance. It was day, thankfully. He hadn't slept too long. The sun was still in the east. There was plenty of time to do what he wanted to do. Ryan reached into his inventory and pulled out a worn notebook, which he turned to the first page. It was a note from Cosllie, written the day before they met up in the old birch house, encountered Ash, and entered the portal. "Ryan, it's been too long. I've been trying to examine the glass structure in the library, but it seems to literally push me away every time I try and get close. I still haven't seen Ash or Villager since we met them last, although I did run into Finn. They asked if we had gotten their cords, and proceeded to tell me something I didn't want to hear. You know the portal we found, right? Well, it does lead to a new realm, a new world, and we might have to go there soon. I'm not quite sure I should tell you this over note. Maybe try and find Finn and ask them. Please meet me tomorrow at my old house. I think Ash lives there now, but again, I have not seen them around lately. See you soon, partner. Cosllie." Ryan squeezed the pages inside. That day might be the last time he ever saw Cosllie. At this point, fighting Villager and getting stuck in the maze was something he missed. He turned to the next page, grabbed the quill, and began to write a checklist. Make cave more homely. Encase the portal, in case of newcomer. Get food. Should be good enough. Ryan walked outside the cave. Over in the patch of trees from the night before were a pair of bones and a bow. He was right, of course. The skeleton had hidden there, awaiting its time to strike. Too bad he couldn't get me, buddy. I know you tried. Ryan chuckled again and stepped in front of the portal. He thought, maybe, about going back through. But if Finn wasn't lying this time, the world beyond that purple wall was gone by now. Worst case scenario, when stepping through, he would just die or cease to exist. Too risky. He wanted to go through the portal, but it wasn't tactical. It wasn't his rational thoughts telling him to enter the portal, but his emotions, and this time listening to them would be his downfall. Ryan cleared out a large number of trees, revealing a decently sized lake and even more mob drops. He placed a series of planks and logs around the portal, leaving room for anyone just entering, but making it hard for someone trying to attack him to get far enough from it to do any damage to his new home. He walked over to the cave, shoveling a path as he walked. What to do? The wool had to stay, he decided, as the cave got too cold during the night, but he needed a real house. Ryan placed all of his memorabilia, including his now retired notebook, in the chest. Carving out more of a cave, he made a perfect spherical entrance to the outside world and began placing logs and planks. Before too much time had passed, a small cabin could be seen covering the cave. To an outsider, no such thing could be seen. With only spare daylight left, he began to till the dirt close to the house, planting seeds along the way. Food, shelter, and a bed to sleep in. These were all things he had to have, that he now did. Was there anything else to do? And with a single thought, an arrow once again just nearly passed his head. Night had once again come. Another arrow passed by him, and another. The flint-tipped projectile barreling towards him finally hit, and with it came an expel of pain. His arm was now aching, and the arrow stuck just below the armor didn't help at all. Ryan turned his back, and to his dismay, saw 4 undead sets of bones slowly making their way to him from the cover of the trees. Another arrow came flying, aimed at his head, but he easily dodged it, being the warrior of Godkin he was. He had to take care of this problem before it happened again the next day. Another arrow bounced off his armor as he began to charge forward. Another and another. A barrage of countless arrows continued to force its way in his direction, many failing to pierce the armor, many more succeeding. The sound of metal banging against each other now seemed commonplace as Ryan pulled out his pickaxe, now being used as his main weapon. He swung once, twice, 3 times. The first skeleton became dust in the wind. Another arrow hit his chest, making its way through the netherite. He continued the march against the bones. 3 strikes once again, and the second fell. Ryan looked up, 2 arrows making their way to him. He dodged the first and the second, yet another 2 came to ambush him. Both hit. Weak and battered from the battle, he clambered up the small hill. 3 hits, the third fell. 1 hit. 2 hits. The fourth skeleton began to back away and shot again, barely missing him. The great warrior swung once again. It connected with the legs of the undead beast, and it followed the other's fates. Ryan stood, and fell just the same. Comfort in a Portal, Act 3. Peace. First came darkness, then light. Ryan awoke in the forest, sunshine coming down from in between the leaves. He sighed and stood up. Feeling began to return to his healing body. Putting his hand to his head, all Ryan could feel was himself. Unbeknownst to him, the netherite helmet had broken during the battle. Those skeletons had been a much harder fight than any with the creatures before. This world had a much different set of rules. It was possible the monsters here were stronger, but that wouldn't be a problem in the future. Ryan pulled out a stack of torches from his inventory and began placing them down. Starting in the forest, he made his way to the open field he had helped in creating. In no time at all, his land was now completely lit up, preventing any future encounters like the one he had experienced the night before. I guess it is time to take a break, Ryan begrudgingly said as he took the last bite of his bread. Or at least, an extended vacation. He thought back to his adventures, not just those in the mazes or with Cosllie at all, but even the ones before that. Before he became the renowned soldier he came to be known as, Ryan was but a simple poet, writing away at his desk in his homeworld. He would write stories, poems, haikus, and novels. A simpler time, he thought. He'd always loved the thrill of battle, but he often did take the time to think back to those days, before he had even learned how to wield a sword. A poem stood out to him, not from his world, but another, of a forgotten pharaoh and his equally forgotten works, and he was happy to be able to pass it along to Cosllie. Maybe they'll be able to praise it as I did. Ozymandias, my dear work of art, said Ryan, eyes glistening with soon-to-be irrelevant memories. The sky was now dark again, and for the first time in 2 nights, this did not signify death and hardship, but a peaceful blanket laid across the sky, a blanket with seemingly good decoration, as he saw a bright light in the distance. A shooting star. He thought of what to wish. A way to get back to his friends, a new weapon capable of destroying any enemy daring to confront him. No. He thought back to one of the many speeches Cosllie had given during his time in the First World. Finn is a terrible person, a terrible god. Ash is easy to throw around and manipulate. Villager is as untrustworthy as someone can be, but you are my right-hand man, the only person I can trust. I need you, and you need to stay by my side until all of this is over. I can't do this on my own. Cosllie would need someone to help them through their journey. If anyone was to carry on his people's legacy in Godkin, it would be them. Although he never believed in anything of the sort, Ryan looked upon the sky and said, I wish for Cosmic to have a new best friend. someone to help them, someone who would do what they need. At that moment, a star began to fall to the crust of the planet Cosllie now called home, a plentiful world filled with new, unheard of flora and fauna. The world populated by people granted powers by their journey through the portals. Bo landed in a large lake, creating a chain reaction in the water. They floated up to the surface and looked around, taking in their new home. Out came a single word.
Hello?
Ryan, I don't know where you are. I don't even know if you're alive. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I wish you the best. I've made new friends since we last spoke. One very loyal one in particular. We're going to kill Finn tomorrow. I don't doubt that you haven't forgotten that name. Well, we didn't get rid of him in the library. By the time you're reading this, we have either failed or succeeded. If the latter is true, we're going through another portal. It's another castle. You'll find it. Hope you're doing well, partner. Your friend, always, Cosllie.